Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 30th, 2024 meeting of the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I'd like to ask Reverend Marple if he would come forward to give us an invocation. Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, friends. We're going to just ask God's blessing upon our gathering together and this time for our meeting today. Father God, we are just so glad that we have the privilege to live in a country where we can still pray for our leaders. And so today, God, as Paul instructed Timothy, he said to pray for kings and those who are in authority over us, that God will give them wisdom and grace and strength to lead and to carry the many responsibilities that they carry. And so, Father, today we're just asking that as we come and join together in this county commissioners meeting, that God, you would just give grace and strength to our mayor, our city council, our county commissioners, our police, our state police, and Calvert County Sheriff's Department. We pray for all of the leaders that are here today, that God, you would give them wisdom and direction and strength and understanding to be able to take the information that's given and make the best decision for the whole. Lord, bless Prince Frederick, Maryland. Bless Maryland as a whole, our nation, our country, God. Just give us grace and strength as we move forward. And bless every person that's here. Bless their families. And God, for all of these things, we're going to give you grace, and we're going to just give you thanks and praise. In Christ's name we ask, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for the privilege to get to come and do this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So thank you, Reverend Marple. And Reverend Marple comes to us today from the Full Gospel Assembly of God Church right down the street here in Brent Charter. Thank you, sir. Next, need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as submitted, sir.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So I have a couple public service announcements. Today at 12 o'clock, we're going to be going down to the Chesapeake Hills Golf Course to cut the ribbon on the new clubhouse. If you haven't driven by, you should take a little side trip and look. The new clubhouse is a wonderful new facility. We hear that they have an excellent cooking staff there, and you don't have to just play golf. You can go there and have dinner or lunch one day. So
It is good. I've had it.
Yes. Well, if you trust Commissioner Hart,
Look at that face. How
it's
can
a
you not?
recommendation. But we'll be there today at 12 o'clock to cut the ribbon, and just want to thank the staff for all their hard work to get that completed. It's been, I don't know, 5 years since we made the decision to build that clubhouse.
Oh,
Been a
that's
while.
probably about,
It took a little while. So,
Yes.
really looking forward to going down there today to cut the ribbon.
Very excited. Very excited.
Also, early voting starts on May 2nd, which is this week, and runs through the 9th. It's going to be, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. They're including Saturdays and Sundays. There are 3 locations, Ward Farm Park in Dunkirk, the Community Resources Building here in Prince Frederick, and the Southern Community Center. If you're not registered, you can still register and vote. There's a dashboard where you can check the time at the early voting locations to see if there's a line. And if you are unaffiliated or a third-party voter, you can still vote on the Board of Education election that's going on this time. So you still have a reason to go. Primary election is going to take place on Tuesday, May the 14th, and you can visit calvertcountymaryland.gov/vote to get more details about this election season. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's been observed since 1949. It's estimated that 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience some type of mental illness each year. Usually for me, it's during budget season. But less than half of them receive treatment. So if you know somebody, please reach out because we have lots of resources to help them. There's no reason for someone to feel alone or have a need that doesn't get addressed. So please reach out. You can call the Calvert County Health Department at 410-535-5400. And there's also going to be a Chalk the Walk event to celebrate Children's Mental Health Awareness Week from May 5th to the 11th. And you can join us in drawing pictures on public sidewalks to raise awareness. And there are several other Chalk the Walk events being planned throughout the county. You can visit ericalvert.org/ for more information on those events. So that's all the public service announcements I have today. And we don't have any proclamations today. That's different. That brings us to consent. We have several items under consent today. Item 1, Department of Human Resources, Local Government Insurance Trust, sponsorship request for the Calvert County Board of Library Trustees and the Tri-County Council of Southern Maryland. Item 2, Department of Community Resources, FY 2024, Senior Care Program Grant Additional Award. Item 3, Department of Finance and Budget, Annual Health Insurance Renewal Plan Year July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Item 4, Department of Parks and Recreation, National Recreation and Parks Association Million Coaches Challenge Grant. Item 5, Department of Technology Services, the Tyler Technologies Updated Agreement. And item 6, Department of Public Works, the Waterman's Wharf Oversight Committee bylaws. Are there any objections to the items under consent?
I have none.
Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to adopt those items.
Make a motion, we adopt those items, sir.
Second.
Have a motion and a second that we adopt those items under consent. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. That brings us to old business. Office of the County Administrator, Capital Improvement Plan, FY 2025 through 2030. Mr. County Administrator. Director Director Miller, sorry. Did I just demote you?
At your pleasure. Morning, Commissioners. Mark Willis, County Administrator. To my right is Director of Finance and Budget, Bruce Miller. We do have various staff members in the back that kind of make all this go, so credit goes to them as we move forward. So on April 9th, for this particular program, or this particular session today, this is to, in a nutshell, is to seek your guidance later on. I'll describe that somewhat in this letter I'm going to read quickly, and then in the very quick presentation. So on April 9th, 2024, the Board of County Commissioners received a presentation from the County Administrator on the current status of the Sheriff's Office headquarters located at 30 Main Street, Prince Frederick. As you will recall, the building constructed in 1919 originally served as the Calvert Hospital, marking the inception of healthcare services for Calvert County residents. The Board of County Commissioners directed staff at that time to identify a new long-term location for the Sheriff's Office and incorporate plans for construction of a new facility for the Sheriff's Office into the current capital improvement plan. In order to introduce the Sheriff's Office project into the 6-year CIP, my office with Finance and Budget and other departments closely worked together and undertook an exhaustive examination of all projects within the CIP. And you might notice that the 6-year CIP is really, right now, it changes obviously every year. So right now we're looking at 25 through 30. But I will tell you that we looked out as far as 2040 because we had to know what was out there in the future to know what we could do with today. So when we say exhaustive, it was exhaustive. So we looked at that and we looked at the financial responsibilities that the commissioners have today. You will see in a short spreadsheet what we've come up with. So there's no request for funding today. By taking the collaborative, communicative, and I believe a financially sound approach, staff is actively seeking direction and approval from the board regarding the new proposed approach to the CIP. Move us along there, please.
Yes.
So the CIP update is to really a couple of things. Plan for the construction of the new facility for the Calvert County Sheriff's Office, and also I think a much more responsible task was to really look at the second bullet there, and that's to align the Commissioner's priority of fiscal responsibility. The next slide. So I don't want this slide to be misleading. This slide was really because I was focused on the Sheriff's Office. Although we focused on the entire CIP, which will really be described in the next slide. So we have two major CIP projects on this slide. One is the Harriet Elizabeth Brown, which, as you can see, we have moved that out to fiscal year 27, potentially starting with approval from the board. And we have moved the Sheriff's Office out to fiscal year 29. It's a little bit different than what we looked at last year. But before we move to the next slide, the reason, if you look in fiscal year 25 and 26, we have no major projects starting in those years, except for projects that the board has already agreed due to the level of funding from the state. For example, the Northern Middle School, where we're getting 65% grant funding from the state, it's kind of hard to pass up that funding. The board understands that the kids need this new school system. So that's in the CIP, and you would see that in the budget as we bring that budget before you for the approval of the budget, of the fiscal year 25 budget. So this is really just a point to the fact that we're dropping the Sheriff's Office in that location. We moved everything back for fiscal responsibility. Then we looked at the finances within the entire CIP, and that's the next slide. So in a nutshell, you know, what you have to consider when looking at this slide is the different types of monies that are used by the Board of County Commissioners to make these projects go. So you've got pay-go, which is technically it's your prior year funding that you have available that you can pull forward. You've got debt, which is if you decide to bond a particular project, that's the debt that you're gonna pay on that bonding source. You've got excise money, which is just monies collected throughout the year. And then you have grants and other, and what that means is you can have a grant that pays 100%. You can have other types of program open space, which is really a grant. But keep in mind that with some grants, there's a cost to grants. Rarely are grants always free. There's always some type of match. In many cases, it's a high percentage. It could be 40%, 50%. It could be staff hours. We took a complete look at all of the grants and how they were funding the project and how we were helping to fund the grant. So when you look at this particular slide for fiscal year 25, you have the staff recommended budget. In the second column, you have the commissioner's recommended budget that we're trying to bring before you right now. And there was a savings of $6,777,660 when we moved items around, mainly out to the right. That was reduced by, that was just in pay-go alone. If you take that number all the way to the bottom of that column, saved throughout fiscal year 25 and the different monies associated, we've saved 42 million. We haven't saved it, we're pushing it. I want to make that clear. We're not saying that we're never going to do these jobs or these projects. We're just pushing it out to be fiscally responsible as long as we need to operate as a fiscally responsible county, which is what the goal is. So 42,747,000. That's a 47% reduction overall in fiscal year 25 cost to the CIP. The next slide is the same thing. If you look at the total amount at the bottom for fiscal year 26, it's 42,885,000, which is roughly a 46% cost savings, or again, pushing to the future. The reason that's important, for fiscal year 25 and 26, we want to make sure that we've provided the Board of County Commissioners an opportunity to breathe a little, knowing that, you know, we have work to do on the budget. that we have outliers where monies come into us to balance the budget. We have monies going out. This is an attempt to give you breathing room to make sure that me and my staff can make that happen on your behalf. And that means a balanced budget, not this year, but in all the future years to come. So what we're seeking here today is your approval to direct staff to adjust the CIP, which would be in the fiscal year 25 document. The adjusted CIP would be in that 2025 recommended budget. You would see it on the 16th of May. The other item that we're talking about is basically moving the pay-go that we moved. So if you look at the pay-go in that previous chart, it's almost 7 million in fiscal 25 and 4.4 in fiscal year 26. We would like to move that back into the budget to cover any future debt as you may decide to use it. And subject to your questions, Commissioners, that's all that I have for you.
I think it's important to let everybody know why this is being done. So if you're just not really understanding CIP or what have you, the budget problems that we're having are real. I've done a lot of these, and there's always going to be some people out here that go, oh, they've got money, I pay tax. No. You cannot lose $22 million. You can't be told about it in January. You can't have the largest unfunded mandate, and I'm not throwing rocks at nothing. We have always supported the school system over and above what we were told to do. And even one year that they said we only gave $1, that was recommended by the state. The state said if you fund what you did last year and $1, it was a COVID year, there was a lot of kids that were not going to school, we will give an additional $5 million. We've always done everything. But the blueprint is a state problem. Don't let anybody fool you. And when you lose $22 million on top of it, for the only reason is that you can afford it, is what the direction is why we're having this discussion. I think that's very important for people to understand that this is not normal, and this is nothing that was foreseeable. It's just a problem now to solve, and that's where this is. And sorry for that deep dive, but that's why we're looking at, because I know we need a sheriff's office. Well, anybody's ever walked through there, I mean, it is not an adequate workspace. It's not. But, like you say, it's a fluent document. And I wish we were building it today. But barring something changing dramatically, it just can't happen today. But,
I agree with Commissioner Hart. The public needs to know that our budget situation is critical. I don't like seeing the sheriff's office move to fiscal year 29. I'd
Nope.
like to have additional talks about that. I want to move it closer. I know 25 and 26 is where we are going to get our bearings and have some breathing room and reevaluate. But I think that needs to be done. People need to know the sheriff's office is in bad situation. It probably should be condemned. There's a top floor that you can go straight through. There's not adequate accommodations for the, where you have all of the evidence room. It just is not a good work environment for our sheriffs. So that's my 20%.
and I think to add to that, to the public to know, the sheriff's office is not beating on us. They're still going to work every day. They're doing their jobs. They're not beating on us saying, we just all know collectively that that building is way past its time. So I don't want anybody to think that they're asking for some Taj Mahal, because they're not. They just need a safe, adequate workspace.
And Mark, while this is a work session, can you talk through us through the process of FY '29? Is that start to build? Is that studies? Can you just walk us through that process?
Yes, sir. So the question is, what does 29 represent as far as what we're able to do when we hit fiscal year 29? So with any project, staff's already planning in advance. They know what they want. We've collected basic schematics. We have a basic scope. So before we get to any given year, we know what we want to do or what we need to do. We put together a plan, we bring that before the Board of County Commissioners for your understanding of the direction that we're asking you to take us. So for 29, if you take any department that's in there, for the sheriff's office, we would hope that between now and then, we could in 28 potentially put money in fiscal year 28 to make sure that the design is there, that the project is bid out, and that we know truly, or have a better understanding when we put that bid out, what it's gonna cost. So we could potentially have it ready to go in 28 with funding in 29 and 30. And the reason I say that is, like the building that's going up right now, the county administrative building, when you look at that, it's really a 3-year program. You design it in a year and you build it over 2 fiscal years. It may not take 24 months to build, but you're paying for some of it in 1 year and you're paying some of it in the next year for construction. We would do the same for all of those outlying projects.
Mark,
Thank
is
you.
it etched in stone where it's going?
Excuse
Is
me,
it
sir.
etched in stone where it's going? I mean, do we have definitive, we've worked out all the,
So for the sheriff's officer? So the sheriff's office, we had looked at this for many years. In fact, it was almost 5 years ago that I sat down with at that time, Sheriff Evans, and requested that they postpone. They were looking to move out of that building then. Based on my understanding of where we were with CIP monies necessary, I asked that they postpone that for a period of 5 years. And they agreed with me to do that. We're at that 5-year mark now. They didn't come back to me and ask me to put this on the agenda. My Department of Public Works, and within that, our buildings and grounds staff, have call after call going into that building. It's either fixing mold or mildew, and they're able to mediate it, but it just returns. The floors are sagging. When Commissioner Grasso talked about the crampedness of the different storage rooms within the building, I personally went over there and walked the entire building, and to be honest, I know what I weigh. The floors barely hold me up on the top floor.
well, because why I ask, and not to cut you off there, why I ask is if we don't have it etched in stone where it's going, maybe these are some of the things we can make sure we know where it's gonna go, start getting the plans together, so that when we are ready to green light, we're not waiting around for settlements or easements or anything like that, you know what I mean, that can slow a project down. You know, there's probably a lot we can do that financially wouldn't be too much a burden.
So fiscally speaking, any project that the Board of County Commissioners wanted to move at any time, as long as it's done in a public hearing, we can move those funding availability. We can move those projects to suit the needs of the citizens, to suit the needs of the departments on behalf of the citizens. That's your call truly at any time.
Right, but I was saying, do we know today where that building, if we had the money today, where's that building being built?
Well, if I had money today and that building was being built, it's still planned to go at where the Harriet Elizabeth Brown headquarters building is sitting for Parks and Rec, at the Heb building, or Harriet Elizabeth Brown building.
Okay.
That's that entire lot will be, when I say compound, it'll be the compound for the sheriff's office. In that, there are outbuildings where he's trying to consolidate all of his services in one location, minus the north and south satellite locations. I mean, I know the board wants it, the sheriff's office wants to have that spread out, present in the community. That will stay the same. But if I were to build that today, I would have to find somewhere for the staff within the HEB to go, and the programs within the HEB where they would go, because I know it's the commissioner's desire not to cut services. So we would have to find a place for staff and find a place for services.
So if you were to use that HEB building, so to speak, if today, let's say there was nobody in there, would the sheriff's office fit in that building?
They won't fit in the building with all of what they would like to do, but we sat down with the sheriff and his staff, and they have a phased-in program. They are not trying to push this. They are not trying to get it all in 1 year. They realize that it's a phased program. He could put the majority of his operational staff, of his control staff, in that building. And keep in mind, I mean, as that's happening, we can retain use of the Calvert building, where they are currently. We would just move them to a single floor where we don't have to worry about the HVAC units on the top not working or floors sagging, et cetera.
So when I look at, what page? When we're talking about, oh mercy, I just had it, I'm sorry.
Are you
You
looking
know,
for
out in
slides?
FY 29 and all this, design and all this, I mean, if we're using the existing building, would we even have to go through all of that? I mean, it sounds like you're just tweaking the existing building, right?
I don't think they know that yet.
Or, okay, we
The
don't
exist,
know.
again, sir, I want to clarify
I think they're
for,
trying to get too far ahead.
yeah, so you're saying tweak the existing, the HEB building for, yeah, so I have a plan that was created by my staff and the sheriff's office staff that looks at what the long-term approach would be to that building. Currently, they would move into the existing building to the point where they are OSHA, MOSHA certified. I mean, we're not over cramping them. They would still use part of the Calvert building until we could, there's a secondary phase and third phases that would create an addition to that building. So they're not looking for a brand-new building. They're looking for a renovated building and a future addition to the building.
I think we need to work together to see how that can happen much sooner rather than later. They're in a building that should be condemned. It's not a good work environment health-wise, and we owe it to the safety of our sheriffs who keep us safe to do the best we can do to accommodate them.
Commissioner, may I offer a directive that then you would give back to me? And that is, you know, from your comments, ma'am, what I would do is get with Parks and Recs and we would analyze their staffing requirements, their program requirements, their storage requirements, because they do store materials and equipment in that building for use. I could get with staff, I could come back and present that to the board at a later but near-term date as we move forward.
That's acceptable,
I'm
sooner
good with
rather
that.
than later, for
I'm-
sure.
I'm good with that.
So, based on, you've taken everything out of CIP that requires PAYGO that doesn't have a significant grant contribution, correct? And that list of projects is this big for 25?
For 25.
So it's mainly the school and what other projects?
It's primarily those programs that have associated grants and those projects that are currently in process that need to continue pay-go amounts. And that is approximately, I want to say, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, about $12 million that we were able to push out.
So, sir, on that, we also moved out, we looked at grants held and PAYGO offsetting the grants. And if it didn't have a grant, but it was set up on PAYGO, we took all that money. But I will say that we moved several of the projects out from underneath the Board of Education as well. And we were in communication with Shachina Warder, their engineer of record, and they know what we're doing, and they might not be happy about it, but they accept the situation that we're in.
So that's gonna save us 6.7 million in 25, correct? And the current hole in the budget is what,
Right today,
today?
$28 million.
Yeah, just wanna make sure everybody hears that. So the 6.7 is gonna go towards that 28. And that 28 does that include the Board of Education request?
No, sir.
Does that include any COLAs or steps for employees?
No, sir.
So the hole's $28 million. So,
And
and as
that's, I was gonna say, that's after the numerous cuts that have already been made throughout county government elsewhere.
Right.
I mean, we struggle to do everything we can, and we appreciate the staff doing everything you can to cut. You know, this battle's been going on for a while now, but we appreciate everything that staff has done, and, we're gonna do everything we can to make sure this thing gets balanced.
And so I think the emphasis today is that, to fix this issue, because everybody wants to know, what are you gonna do? I think today is just the first step of things that we're gonna do, and we're not gonna fix this in 1 year. You know, well, I mean, we could, but I don't think we're gonna do that, so, pushing all these projects, and I always say CIP is written in pencil. Until you break ground, projects get pushed, projects drop in, depending on resources. So, today's just the first step in our plan to correct this ship that's sinking.
And Commissioner, I know that earlier you asked me to give the, are we set on this budget? And for a couple of points that you've just mentioned as far as the COLA, et cetera, we don't have the exact number. I also don't have the numbers from the school board. So whatever they may be coming up with, I don't have their latest numbers that they would like to request. And that's a pretty tough spot for my Director of Finance to be in, but we're working in that direction.
Did they give you any kind of date? I mean,
No, sir.
So I think he's trying to get on the schedule to come back in and readjust, because he did make an ask of 10 million a month or so ago, but that didn't include the contracts for staff, which they're working on now, and I think they do have a preliminary number that I won't say today, but they have a number. But,
And like you mentioned earlier, those numbers are not in these numbers. So.
no, they're not, and there's no COLAs and steps in these numbers. So, you know, CIP is gonna be what the CIP is, and I understand that there are projects that people want done right now. They don't wanna wait. They don't understand why they have to wait, but they're gonna have to wait.
We don't have
And-
money.
Right. So we're gonna do what we have to do to get this ship corrected, and it's gonna be painful for probably the next 2 years. Because people wouldn't like what we would have to do to correct it right now.
no,
And
it would be dramatic.
commissioners don't like what we would have to do right now to correct the ship. So it's gonna take a while to get this fixed. So-
Well, and we don't have a culture of raising taxes every time the wind blows. I mean, there's some jurisdictions that are having no problem with it. They just keep raising your taxes, and they just keep adding line items, and you can pay tax on this and pay tax on that, and that's the solution. And I've said it before, very first budget I came in on was pretty much done. You get sworn in January, but they worked on it all year long, so I've actively worked on 9. And if I raise taxes on every single budget that I've worked on, it would be 9 straight times, because that's the answer. And so it's a very serious thing to go into somebody's pocketbook and take money out of their pocket when, go to the grocery store, pay your homeowner's insurance. I mean, there's no question, everything's going up, and as it does here too. So, Commissioner Hans is exactly right. It would be, I mean, I got a whole list of a form letter, just raise my taxes. Stop. Till you read it, and till you look at the budget, and you don't really know what you're asking for. When it went up $8 million, and I told you, I didn't have the guts to raise your taxes back then. I didn't know the budget that well. I was brand new. We still never came down to where that was originally, even with the infusion of Dominion, because the cost of goods and everything keeps going up. That ask to raise taxes isn't just $20 a year out of your homeowners. It would be significant. So careful what you wish for when you keep saying, just raise my taxes. Because one day you will get that wish, and it's not going to be easy.
Mr. President, I'm sorry,
Oh, no.
I'm sorry. Ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
I move that we direct staff to proceed to public hearing and identify a location for the sheriff's office headquarters that would effectively house all major departments and incorporate its construction into the CIP and move the PAYGO funding to debt funding in the commissioner recommended budget with the intent to adjust the appropriation after financial reconciliation and audit.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Have a
Commissioner.
great-
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a work session, Department of Human Resources, Personnel Chapter 86, Code Amendments, Part 3. Good morning.
Morning.
Ladies, gentlemen,
Commissioners.
you don't have to read the memo, you can just start. How's that?
No need to read the memo, just jump on in.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Melanie Woodson. I'm Human Resources Director. And I have my colleagues here with me this morning that'll introduce themselves.
That would be you.
Dina Davis, Human Resources Deputy Director.
And Bruce Miller, Finance Director.
Good morning.
Morning.
Commissioners, we have a presentation for you today. These are the Personnel Chapter 86 proposed code amendments. A little bit of background on our processes. The Department of Human Resources policies are found in the Code of Calvert County. We are completing a comprehensive review of Personnel Chapter 86 of the code. And our objectives with this review is to simplify, deconflict, update, and render best practice. Our process is as follows. The Department of Human Resources drafts Chapter 86 amendments. The proposed amendments are shared with all of the department heads for feedback. We hold a work session with the Board of County Commissioners for additional feedback and direction. And the proposed amendments are sent to the County Attorney's Office for legal review. Just a note here, we have already sent this Part 3 to the County Attorney's Office for legal review. We do anticipate that after today's session, we will be making additional changes and it will go back to the County Attorney's Office again for additional review. We will schedule a public hearing. The board will vote after a period of 10 days, and the amended Chapter 86 will be adopted. Part 3 of Chapter 86 is pay plan and adjustments. In the first article, we are making some changes to state that a COLA may be granted each fiscal year. We're revising the timing of step increases to the first business day in July. Previous language was the beginning of the first pay period closest to July 1st. And so in the past, sometimes step increases were effective late June or early July. It depended on how the calendar fell. Now that we have Workday as our human resources information system or finance information system, that allows us a little bit more flexibility in terms of providing the increase in the middle of a pay period. So we're stating that we would like it to be the first business day in July, when they are, of course, provided. We revised the service requirement to 6 months for hourly employees to be eligible for a July step increase. In the past, or currently I should say, an hourly employee would need to be in that position for 1 year prior to getting a step increase. Other salary adjustments that we are proposing, our current promotion rate is 6%. That has been in effect since July of 2005. What we are proposing now is to maintain the 6% increase, but provide an opportunity for an additional step to be granted based on previous experience or qualifications. We clarified the beginning and end of the work week, and we updated language to include compressed work schedules. Shift differential is a premium pay to employees that are working undesirable hours. We are proposing to expand eligibility for shift differential to include all FLSA non-exempt full-time employees. FLSA is the Fair Labor Standards Act, and so we would like to propose that all employees who fall under non-exempt, full-time or part-time, employees with benefits would then be eligible for shift differential. We are also proposing a change to the hours that shift differential would be paid. We're suggesting 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I'll talk a little bit about what we currently do for shift differential. Right now, employees that receive and dispatch emergency and non-emergency calls from the public regarding public safety and law enforcement, so 911 or the communications officers with the sheriff's office, and sworn members of the sheriff's office and the detention center. This time, those are the only employees that are eligible to receive shift differential. Our proposal would open up shift differential to other positions such as career EMS. They work 24-hour shifts and they don't receive that premium pay at this time. And other positions that might not work your traditional 8:30 to 4:30 shift. So for example, custodians, compactor operators, any parks and recreation staff, again, those positions with benefits would be eligible to receive shift differential. Field training officer pay, or we call it FTO pay, is currently being provided to specific job titles. Again, it would be our deputy sheriffs, correctional deputies, and then 3 positions within public safety call takers, public safety dispatcher trainees, and public safety dispatcher ones. We are proposing to expand that to also include career paramedics, career emergency medical technicians, sheriff's communication officers 1 and 2. Currently, the FTO rate of pay is an additional hour. This would be for those hours that these employees are working with a new hire. We do have communication from the Fraternal Order of Police that was included in your packet today. They are asking for the FTO pay to be raised to a minimum of $3 per hour. They state that it is closer to $5 per hour throughout the state. We have not confirmed, and at this time, we remained with $1 an hour for FTO pay. Canine handler pay, we are asking to just revise the language here to include the eligibility for canine handler pay for each hour of holiday leave. This was an oversight when this new policy was enacted last year. It is already currently in place within Workday. This is just to correct an error. And the canine handler pay is paid to employees of the sheriff's office who are assigned a canine. We currently have 10 employees that are receiving canine handler pay, and they receive $2 for every hour, regular hour or holiday hour or leave hour. So for them, it's about $4,100 per year. We are recommending the creation of a new pay type called Critical Incident Response Pay. This was added in response to provide premium pay to exempt employees responding to emergencies. We've had several requests. Currently, exempt employees are not eligible for overtime. The county is more generous than the FLSA requires, and we do currently provide 1 hour of compensatory leave, comp time, for exempt employees. This policy would provide regular rate of pay, so cash, for exempt employees responding to critical incidents beyond the regular working hours. The county administrator would have final approval on the critical incident response pay request. Overtime. The Department of Human Resources is proposing a change from daily overtime to weekly overtime, and to not count paid leave towards overtime calculation. Currently, we are again more generous than the FLSA requires us to be in terms of paying our non-exempt employees overtime. We pay daily overtime, so an employee would receive 1.5 times their regular rate of pay currently for any hours worked in excess of their daily schedule.
How does that work on is that assuming it's a full-time shift?
It's for full-time employees or employees, it's only for full-time employees. If you're a part-time employee, seasonal or hourly, working at the pool or the golf course, we do weekly overtime currently for those employees. So there would be no change. It's just for our full-time employees that are currently receiving daily overtime.
Well, they would
Proposing a change.
exceed the full-time anyway, right? Or is that, I mean, their hours would go over that?
Commissioner, it would depend. So the way it works now is you could have an employee who could work less than 40 hours in a week and receive time and a half overtime because they exceeded their regular shift one day. So the way that we're proposing this is that you wouldn't get overtime until you work 40 hours. We've been very generous, you've been very generous throughout the years to allow employees to be paid overtime daily. That is not a standard practice, and we're recommending that we move forward with following what the federal law requires, which is paying overtime at 40 hours per week.
Okay.
So
And-
does the
and what-
Fed-
What would we do with the 35-hour
was my
employee?
It would start at 40 hours, so it would be 1 hour, 1x overtime from hour 36 to 40.
So the 35-hour employee is going to get overtime at 36 and up.
1x, straight time, is our
Straight time.
recommendation.
So FLSA doesn't cover 35-hour employees?
It does not.
I would like to just note here that it was our consultant's recommendation to not include paid leave in the overtime calculation. We currently do.
So if I had worked my week and I took, I'm just used to like private industry where you go on vacation, pretty much you're making your same thing, so you could pile days on and get overtime on top of your stuff?
Correct.
Currently. So for example, let's say that a non-exempt employee uses 7 hours of leave on Monday,
Uh-huh.
and then they work their regular 7-hour shift.
Oh, so it doesn't back off
Tuesday.
at the end of the week, so you don't, is that out? So you don't go, okay, well, Friday, I've already hit my 40 hours, go home, no, you just work through your shift? Is that how it happens?
So from a vacation perspective, you could have an employee who could have been on vacation the first 4 days of the work week, and then they come in to their normal 8-hour shift on Friday. And then something happens, an emergency happens, and they end up having to work 10 hours on Friday. They're gonna get overtime for working 10 hours in a week.
Currently.
Correct. That is the current situation. So what we are proposing is that they would not receive overtime, they would receive straight time. They wouldn't hit overtime until they had physically worked 40 hours.
And I kinda get that, but if I took vacation, say Monday through Thursday, and Friday, a situation had me work over, I mean, it's still kinda my days though,
It
right?
is.
I mean, so, I mean, unless I'm looking at it funny, I mean, it's, I'm still burning my days and then I did work over, 40 hours.
So
So-
if you were to receive overtime for working over on Friday, that would be you receiving overtime towards leave, which is what we currently do. So non-productive hours. Our proposal is to only receive overtime on productive hours.
So what about the 12-hour shift employees on long week versus short week? Because you're not gonna get 40 in your short week. You're gonna be under your 40, but you're gonna be over your 40 in your long week by quite a bit. How are you addressing that? Is it based on 80 at that point?
It's only based on 80 for the sheriff's department because they have special provisions for that line of work. But if we're talking another division that has that type of shift, they need to make sure that their employees are being scheduled for 40 hours a week.
So if somebody took a personal day in their 80-hour work week, but yet they got called in for a barricade at the end of that second week, technically because they used leave in the first week, they're not gonna get paid overtime for the barricade they got called out for, correct?
They would get more than 40 hours on their paycheck. It wouldn't be paid at time and a half, correct?
That's gonna be a challenge.
That's what we're here for, to get your feedback.
This is just a work session.
This is a work session.
The next slide goes over the difference between compensatory leave, what we call comp time, versus paid overtime. For compensatory leave, employees earn compensatory leave but face difficulties in using it effectively. Absences stemming from compensatory leave disrupt project schedules and team cohesion, potentially incurring additional overtime expenses. Comp time poses unforeseen staffing challenges compared to the predictable nature of overtime pay. At 100% payout upon separation, compensatory leave extends the county's leave liability. And comp time is classified as an uncompensated absence according to the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB.
Yeah, when I was reading that, I thought that would be a nightmare for the person that was working with that. Why wouldn't we just pay the person right on the spot and give them their money?
So, as a local government agency, we can provide comp time. It's really a budget, allows us to stretch our budget because we don't have to pay so much overtime. But our new finance director has shown us that it is an unfunded leave liability, and that actually providing paid overtime to employees at the time when they're, doing overtime instead of providing them with leave.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, wouldn't you just want, I mean, that would be a nightmare to try to juggle, you owe somebody 2 hours here and 4 hours there, why wouldn't you just pay them their overtime? I mean, it sounds like the comp time's because you stayed and you're trying to avoid overtime, and I can appreciate that, but, I mean, if they worked it, they need to just get paid, I mean, I would think. I mean, isn't that the law, don't you have to
That's what
pay?
our proposal is, Commissioner.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
sorry, okay, 'cause
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
okay.
I was
I
like,
just
that's-
wanted to go over,
That's a juggling nightmare.
Yeah, I wanted to go over the differences between providing the leave and providing paid overtime.
And how much comp time can you carry over?
I'm sorry?
How much comp time can an employee carry over?
So if they are a non-exempt employee, they can keep the comp time forever. And there is a limit on the amount of comp time that an employee can earn. If they are not a deputy, they're not sworn, it is 200, don't quote me, but I believe it's 240 hours. If they're a deputy, it is 420. So we do have some employees that have high amounts of comp time that they do need to use, or when they leave, they would be paid out in cash at 100%.
Do we require them to use comp time before they use their annual leave?
We do.
We do,
Okay.
we do.
So let me go back to the 12s real quick. You said the sheriff's office is exempt. I guess that would be the detention center too, because they're 12 hours and they're sworn, and they're on the 8.
No, sir.
Only law enforcement.
Again, it's an FLSA. They're called partially exempt employees, and it only is the sworn deputies.
All right, so the
Wow.
control center, Ricky's communication officers, none of them are
No.
part of this.
Correct.
So how do we address their time then? Because they have the same situation. I mean, if the sheriff's office has a situation going on, most likely the 911 center had to work through it, and then it ends up down at the detention center. I mean, it's all one big team.
In terms of providing overtime,
Mm-hmm.
they would earn overtime at 40, after 40, at time and a half. And I
But there
just
again,
want to,
you can't do that because you'd have to go back into your 80 if they're working 12s. See what I'm saying? Because you got a long week and a short week.
correct,
So
so
you'd
they
have
would,
to
they
calculate
would
it.
receive straight time. So if the second week was their short week, they would receive straight time for any hours that they work up to 40.
But isn't it based on your 2-week pay schedule, not
For
a
a
week at a
deputy,
time?
it would be.
Just for the deputy, that's what has, that's my question.
Yeah. It's gonna be a 2-week.
So
But
your
for
first
a
week is
regular-
over 40 though, is everything over 40 your first week overtime?
Correct,
It is.
yes.
That's gonna cost us a lot of money.
So the math has been done, and we have numbers for you. I hear you.
I can go into the numbers now, or?
Sure,
Answer his question.
All right.
sure.
So, and at the back of your packet, and if you could, do you have that?
Do you want it up on the screen?
So, at the back of the packet, we've done some cost estimates or impact analysis on several of the, or on the different items presented. You can see on the, I'll go down to the comp time conversation. There's two components of that comp time, and this is based on the actual paid variance. We would be saving $1.1 million on that. And then the balance sheet reduction, we would be eliminating over a period of time, because it's not gonna be eliminated on day one because we do owe that money. But if we're not accruing that, we would be reducing the balance sheet liability by approximately $2 million. The other time, the other amount we just talked about is the overtime, again, based on actual payroll analysis. That would reduce payroll by approximately $770,000.
So what I'm saying is, 1 week they're working 60, the next week they're working 20.
Right, but these are all departments.
Oh, okay.
projected-
He's
yeah,
doing
yeah.
All right, see, I'm just trying to figure, so, but out of that 60 week, you're gonna pay them 20 hours of overtime if you're using your 40 number.
Aren't you doing that now? They're
No,
doing that now.
no, they're paying them 80.
No, they're paying daily overtime now. They're
No,
already getting-
no, they're not. It's, that schedule works out where you gotta use Kelly days because you're actually 4 hours over. So I'm saying you're gonna have to, the way it's set up now is pay 20 hours of overtime during that 1 week. We gotta look at that. is what I'm
Their
getting at.
first week, and we have looked at that with the sheriff, and he sent specific scenarios over to us. So on on the week that they work over 40, yes, they are going to earn overtime. Now, the short week situation, employees are supposed to be working a minimum of 80 per pay period in order to be able to get their accurate benefits calculation, their retirement calculation. So there may need to be some adjustments to those schedules to ensure that those
So there's a lot of
employees-
moving parts that need to be looked at in this whole thing.
The schedule will need to be adjusted to ensure that employees are working 80 hours a pay period. But they will receive their overtime once they hit 40.
So why are you basing it on a weekly schedule when they're on a 2-week pay schedule?
That's the law.
So the sheriff's office couldn't go to just a 40-hour week? They have to do
The
it?
sheriff's office is exempt from, they can do every 2 weeks. It's all other employees minus the sheriff's
Would
department.
it be, and I don't know, you know me, I'm a question asker. so
Absolutely.
I'm spitballing. Wouldn't it be easier for their budgeting and everything to just do a straight 40, and then if somebody worked over 40 that week, they were just paid right then, instead of saying, well, they worked here and I gotta back it off here and juggle it? I mean, wouldn't it be easier accounting? Is that a sheriff question?
So their schedule, we don't dictate the way they do their schedule. So you entrust them with your county
Oh, yeah, I
funds,
mean,
and they would
exactly.
need
I'm
to do
I'm
their
just thinking as a
scheduling in
financial
accordance.
piece to
It-
try to
there-
juggle,
There absolutely is,
to
yes.
juggle payroll. That's a lot of accounting.
I think it's worthwhile evaluating and looking,
not fair.
you're recommending looking at an hour, 80-hour.
Again,
Weekly.
I think this is a work session. I
Yeah,
think we need
yeah.
to go back and revisit it because we could be here for
Yeah,
hours and
right.
hours right now. So, I mean, maybe you should talk to, and you keep going to the sheriff's office. It's only sworn employees at the sheriff's office, correct? Not sheriff's office carte blanche?
Correct.
Okay.
Sworn
So that's
deputies.
very important as well.
Sworn
so-
deputies.
That's what I
Now,
would recommend.
but the detention center is what is the situation that you're referring to, is the way they do their scheduling right now. there may need to be some adjustments made in order to maintain their budget.
So, just to change the subject, comp time, accumulating comp time. So I've been working here for 20 years. I accumulated comp time forever. I get ready to leave, I'm paid out at my salary when I leave. Isn't that
Yes.
the issue with comp time?
Yes.
Yes.
I accrued it when I was making $10 an hour, but when I leave, I was making 40.
Yes.
So I'm getting paid out 4 times what it was worth when I earned
It's
it.
a good return on investment.
Very much so.
Well, that's why we're gonna get rid, I'm sorry, that's why we need to get rid of it.
And there's
Yeah.
another,
We're limited.
as was mentioned, other impact is when somebody goes out on comp time, you're typically, not all the time, but typically you are bringing somebody in on an overtime basis to fill that vacancy.
That's true
So-
too.
So there's a double dip.
But the biggest expense is the price differential, of where they earned it and where they get paid for it. That's the biggest issue.
They're both pretty significant, yes.
That's why I didn't understand why we just didn't pay, I'm just from the world, if
Because
you work
back
10
in the
hours-
day, they thought it was cheaper to give people time off than it was to pay them out the overtime. That's why they've done it. That's why they did it.
I always refer to it as an unfunded liability.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, go ahead, Dina.
Can you bring up?
Go back to the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And just to wrap up the comparison of comp time and paid overtime. Paid overtime offers predictability with a one-time expense allocation, helps in avoiding unforeseen staffing gaps and disruptions, aligns with GASB's standards and minimizes leave liabilities, and ensures smoother project timelines and team dynamics. So that all brings us to our proposal from the Department of Human Resources and Finance and Budget. We recommend discontinuing compensatory leave in lieu of providing paid overtime. In this section, we've clarified that compensatory leave will be removed after 12 months for exempt employees. We clarified that compensatory leave is to be used before sick leave and annual leave. And any employee with a compensatory leave balance upon separation shall be paid for the leave. What will happen once this goes into effect is that we will no longer be providing comp time, but the employee will maintain that comp time balance with the hope that it will be reduced over time without any additional comp time being added. So in the end, our liability will be decreasing quickly. Still in the overtime and compensatory leave policy, we've removed the volunteers section and the emergency call-in pay section. We have revised it to clarify emergency. We'll go through the definition that we're going to be adding to the code for emergency in a bit. And we removed compensatory leave for call-in for exempt employees. Also new would be standby pay. This is a premium pay that has been added in response to requests to pay non-exempt employees on call while they are on call and available for call-in. This would be available for non-exempt employees who must remain available to be called back to work. The standby pay rate will be determined in each budget, and the finance director has recommended a daily stipend for standby pay.
Instead of an hourly rate.
Correct.
Do we qualify for that?
No, sir.
Well, this sucks.
But that, okay.
I was probably on call for 28 years up here, probably nice.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that. Some of our employees are on call all the time, so you're gonna pay
Yeah.
them $365. Is that what your plan is?
So we have spoken with department heads, and what this would impact would be public works. For example, buildings and grounds would have someone on standby. highway maintenance, water and sewerage, some other departments as well. So essentially, they have determined for us how many people would be on standby each day. And of course, that person would be rotated. It wouldn't be the same employee all the time receiving standby pay. So that is how we determined the fiscal impact. Each department had provided us with a number of how many people would be on standby each day.
And how
Mr.
much,
Hans's point, all law enforcement's on standby at any given time, I mean, no? I mean, something happens, they get called, they gotta go.
So we have call-in pay. That's different. That is for
Oh.
any employee who, we talked about it on the previous slide, who is non-exempt. Once they get called in, they receive call-in pay for those hours when they're not regularly scheduled. What standby pay is for those employees who may not get called in, but they kind of have to be
Oh, it's
sitting
like
on
the
the
guy, like
phone
if your
and
sewer goes
ready.
down on a weekend, you're the
Yes,
guy that's gotta run.
yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
So they're the ones sort of holding the phone, so to
Mark had
speak.
fun with that years ago. Yeah.
So we don't qualify for that either, right?
They still got
Cause
posters
she
of
calls
Mark
me
after that.
24/7.
So Commissioner.
Yeah, I call Katie on the weekend all the time.
We've received a lot of feedback about the call-in pay, standby pay over the years. So you know, an employee who needs to come back in, they cannot drink. They need to be within 2 hours. Their personal life is impacted while they're holding the phone. They may not be called in, but if they are, they have to be fit for duty. So what this would do is compensate those employees who for years have been making sure that they've been available to the county during their personal time to handle these situations, and they have not received any additional pay for doing so.
So I know of a company that if you're on call for the week, you get paid 4 hours if you don't get called out. That's how you're compensated. You're compensated for 4 hours extra pay for that week. And if you do get called out naturally, you don't get that 4 hours because you get the overtime for the 4 to 8 hours. So you're getting something out of it, not nothing. So
So-
that's another idea.
Yes, and what we're proposing is something, because we've never done anything, so.
so walk me through a snowstorm. So this weekend they call for 2 inches and we don't get anything. Next weekend they call for 2 inches and we get 12 inches and we only have 6 people on standby and we need 20. What happens?
That's where call-in pay kicks in. So employees who would be called in and they would get paid for working on the weekend, for example.
What if I get called in and I'm not fit for duty?
Right now, if you get called in and you're not fit for duty, you're not authorized to work.
But am I still gonna get paid for my call-in time prior to you finding out I wasn't fit for duty?
So that sounds like a matter of conduct, sir, and HR would assist the department head in appropriate disciplinary action.
We only get paid if you show up to call in anyway, right? I mean, so if you call somebody
No,
in.
if you're getting call-in pay, you're on. You're-
Emergency call-in, you
Yeah.
only
Oh,
get paid
well
if
then,
you
yeah,
show
you
up.
have to be
But on
fit, ready to go.
standby pay, you have to be fit and ready to go,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I
yeah.
thought we were supposed to be making it simple.
No, nothing simple.
That's why I'm glad this is a work session.
Yep. We better keep going or we'll be here all day.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking I'll watch my schedule. Let's be somewhere else at 12 o'clock today. That wasn't
Yes.
very smart, but whatever. We'll be late. You can continue.
Article 3 is workers' compensation. In this section, we removed the unemployment compensation section. We followed state law in terms of unemployment compensation. We clarified and simplified workers' compensation language. We added restricted duty, shall be accommodated on a case-by-case basis. And we added an option to terminate an employee while they are on workers' compensation. Article 4 is holiday premium pay. We define holiday work as non-overtime work on a designated holiday. And we are proposing that holiday premium pay is equal to an employee's regular rate of pay. So double time, if you will. We added language to state a regularly scheduled shift that overlaps 2 days, one of which is a holiday, is considered a holiday throughout the entire shift. This is in response to, say, a career paramedic whose shift is 6 p.m. on Christmas Day until 6 PM the day after Christmas, we would consider that entire 24-hour shift to be a holiday, and they would receive double time for the entire shift.
Okay, so just
Yeah,
to make
but-
sure I'm clear on this, so Christmas, you're getting double time, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You know you get visited by 3 ghosts if you mess with that, you know that, right?
How about if the holiday falls on a Sunday and they have to work Monday, and we observe it on a Friday?
So this is only for actual holidays, where we would pay the premium pay. So we would be listing
So
the
they would not get
days.
paid for that Monday.
Not on the
Not
observed
holiday
day.
pay.
Yeah, so, premium, the holiday pay is to be paid on the actual holiday for those employees that have to work on Christmas Day, on Thanksgiving. So we would have a list of the actual days that they would be eligible to receive that pay.
So it's actual designated.
It's the actual
holidays.
day.
Doesn't matter
right.
what day we
So
take
if,
off.
if myself, who's a Monday through Friday employee, Christmas Day is on Saturday, I would have off on the 24th. That's the day that the county designates as the holiday leave day. However, employees that have to work on the 25th, those would be the employees that would receive the holiday premium pay because they're working on the actual holiday.
Okay.
We're good? As you know, Commissioners, we did work with a consultant on changes to the code, and we had recommendations from the consultant to change to weekly overtime, to not include paid leave in the overtime calculation, and to add restricted duty to the workers' compensation section. We did agree and follow through with all of those recommendations. They recommended changing the number of hours that the minimum number of hours that we pay for call-in pay to 3. We currently pay 2. So we did not follow through with that suggestion. We propose to add a definition of the word emergency. This goes back to the call-in pay that we talked about earlier. So this is what would determine whether or not a non-exempt employee is eligible for call-in pay. And we are also considering using something similar to this for the critical incident pay. Again, that's the one that exempt employees would be eligible for critical incident pay. And again, that would be finalized by the county administrator. We're adding a definition of restricted duty. Again, this is referencing the workers' compensation section. This is a modified or light duty assignment based on an employee's medical restrictions or limitations.
So does that affect your hourly pay?
So for restricted duty in terms of workers' compensation, this would be an effort to get the employee back to work, even though they can't 100% complete the duties of their position. This would be providing a reasonable accommodation that would allow them to get off of workers' comp, come back to work until they are released to full
Okay,
duty.
so they're not collecting workers' comp while they're working?
Correct.
Okay.
Once they're back on, once they're working, this would allow us to have an interactive process with the employee to
I was just
determine what
thinking
they
they're
can
still
and can't do.
collecting workers' comp.
No,
We got them back to
this
work.
would be to get them back to
Gotcha.
work as soon as possible.
Gotcha.
Has the retirement issue and your time in service been adjusted while you're on workman's comp, or is that being adjusted while we're doing this? Because it used to be if you went out on workman's comp, your retirement date stopped until you got off workman's comp, and then it picked back up. If somebody gets hurt at work legitimately, that's almost a punitive thing for them for that to happen.
So I'm going to defer back to Melanie. She
Yes.
manages the benefits
Go
team. I'm not sure if that
It-
policy has been changed.
It has been, so it's duration. So your retirement date is tied to your duration of time worked versus the actual number of hours worked.
For
So if an
everybody?
employee,
For everybody?
correct. So your.
So the workman's comp gap is taken care of, is my
It is
con-
taken
okay,
care of,
all right,
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Last slide. I know that you all have an important activity today at noon. We did speak with department heads, and they did provide us with some recommendations. For shift differential, their recommendation was to allow shift differential only for designated schedules. If you'll recall, we chose to expand the eligibility for shift differential and to change the hours that shift differential is available. Promotions, some department heads have requested that we allow salary negotiations so that an employee getting a promotion can negotiate just like a new hire does. Again, we chose to keep the 6% promotion rate, but provide an opportunity for an additional step based on experience.
That applies to merit?
Yes. Work week, some department heads have asked us to consider a 4-day work week. We did provide the opportunity for compressed work schedules in the code. So that is something that can be done now, but it's also clarified in the code. Overtime, weekly overtime over 35 hours, not 40 for full-time workers with a 35-hour work week. I believe that this was Commissioner Ireland's point a few moments ago as well. Compensatory leave, ability to sell compensatory leave by exempt employees. Standby pay, include exempt employees. And then workers' compensation, the ability to add an additional FTE, essentially an additional position, for essential positions when a worker is out for more than 6 months.
So can you briefly just define non-exempt and exempt employees?
Sure. So, according to the FLSA, there's a test that you give each position. And if an employee meets a certain salary threshold, if they make certain types of decisions, if they work in an executive capacity and they pass this test, we deem that the employee is exempt from overtime. When they get a biweekly paycheck, that check does not change. They get the same paycheck no matter how many hours they work. Those employees,
That's what we qualify for.
that is exactly what we qualify for, sir. Yes. No matter how many hours you work as a county commissioner, your salary does not change. So a non-exempt employee has to be paid time and a half overtime once they hit 40 hours. That is the difference, salaried and hourly.
Yeah, gotcha. So, back on one of the slides, you had recommended one of the $2 versus $5. Did you look at, when you're setting your rates and some of these decisions, looked at what everybody else is doing and what like a standard is?
We have not yet looked into the FTO. That's what you're referring to, right? The FTO pay? We have not. That wasn't anything that we researched prior to this. But it sounds like you want to hear what other jurisdictions are paying for their FTO pay.
Right, and I don't mean one county in the middle of Kansas, but I
Understood.
mean, you know, if.
Survey all jurisdictions in the
Yeah.
state to
We should be
determine.
consistent.
Okay.
We're just trying to be consistent.
So I have a directive for my team to
Yeah,
take a look at what the other
yeah.
jurisdictions are paying for FTO pay.
Yeah, we're gonna do this, because it's very extensive, and we're not gonna do it every day, so we should try to be consistent.
Thank you.
And not just for that, and most of all the other stuff too. And Commissioner Allen's right, the sheriff's office is complicated, and then there's shifts, and when you have to calculate it on a weekly basis, even EMS, I think,
Yes.
has, because the shift work, you know, they're not working a 40-hour week like everybody else. I assumed you could just base it on their pay schedule, which would be 2 weeks, but you said the law won't let you do that. That does complicate,
And the control center is in there too.
yeah, anybody that's working shifts.
So, it sounds like you want to hear from each of those types of divisions to understand exactly what the
Yeah.
impact would be to their
Yeah.
shifts based on having to do the weekly 40 overtime.
Right.
And with doing away with the comp time, they wouldn't be able to cover their short week with comp time because there would be no more comp time.
All right, and what are surrounding jurisdictions do? Let's face it, we gotta worry about retention as well. I mean, if we start cutting and surrounding jurisdictions aren't doing these kind of cuts and they're paying their people differently, we're apt to lose employees. So that's something else I think we need to look at.
So for I can tell you that they do weekly overtime. But we can certainly put that information in writing to you.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how they do the 12s. And
Okay.
is everybody doing
The
weekly
shifts.
overtime, or is it broken down?
What type of shifts that they have?
Correct.
Okay, we can get you the shifts for other jurisdictions. And then comp time also, the usage of comp time to fill in for the short weeks, correct?
And I guess legally, you can't pay the comp time, when you pay it out, you can't pay it based on when it was earned.
Earn that.
You can't do that. You also, I'm assuming, we talked about the difference between a 35 and a 40-hour work week when the overtime starts. Does the law say you can't start paying overtime until 40 hours?
We would be able to be more generous because that's what we are right now. So the law does not prohibit you from being more generous.
Well, I'm just thinking, we are on a normal 35-hour work week, right, for some
For-
employees.
For some employees.
What percentage, 50%, you think? Or on
So
35s?
right now, the sheriff's department, the detention center, the 911 operators, all of those employees work 40 hours. Then we have TS, project management, those employees work 40 hours. So we do have a large group of employees that do work 40 hours on a regular basis.
So potentially about half.
I'm just thinking.
If I had
that,
to guess.
You know, if your normal work schedule is for 35, your overtime should start whenever you're above what your
Correct.
normal work week is. So I guess if that's being more generous, then
Do we have a number that we paid out last year in 35 overtime?
No, because we paid daily overtime last year. We currently pay daily overtime.
But we would have that on that number of employees for 35.
You mean the number of employees that are
That
35-hour
earned-
employees that
earned
are
overtime last year.
earning overtime or comp time?
Yes.
We can get those numbers for you.
that's just my 20%. But I'm just saying that, you know,
So are you saying that you want us to write in to the recommendation that we have now that it would be per week?
whatever
40,
your normal work week is.
so it would be based on your normal work schedule?
Right.
Separate the 35 and 40.
Separate the 35 and the 40?
Yeah, whatever your normal work week is.
What you would hire it at?
Yes. Yes.
So that's an edit that we can just go ahead and make right now. We don't need to research that one.
And you, like, there's a couple issues in there, like we said, we should be consistent with everybody else, so, you know, if we're gonna do this, and hopefully it sticks for a while, try to be consistent.
Noted.
Any other questions?
I believe that we may need to bring up the fiscal impact slide so that Bruce, Director Miller, can go line by line just to explain the items that he didn't discuss when it was up previously.
So this schedule, again, identifies impacts, negative and positive, on the salaries. The first is other salary adjustments, promotions. It's very hard to determine how many promotions would be impacted, just based on a 6% plus a 2% midpoint. That would equal about $55,000 a year. Again, it's hard to judge one way or the other, depending upon. Shift differential savings based on a quarter reduction in qualifying hours. That's $103,000 savings. Field training officer, this would equal approximately $10,000 increase. The overtime compensation, right now, as written, would save approximately $770,000. The elimination of comp time, because there would be a elimination of pay time off, that redundancy would approximate $1.1 million, and then the elimination of the liability, approximately $1.9 million. The critical incident, just based on a $100,000 salary, at 100 hours, that would equal an increase of approximately $5.5 thousand. Standby, approximately 20 qualifying employees, 7.3 potential days per year. Again, it's all depending upon coverage. That equates to about a $165,000 increase. And then the holiday pay elimination, based on actual, is approximately $370,000. So the total summation aggregation of those different savings and increases is approximately $2.1 million.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there gonna be part 4? No, part 3, this is the last? Oh, okay. And you'll be back?
For a public hearing.
But you're
Well,
gonna
at
meet
some
with
point you have to come back based on direction.
Yeah.
Give us an update.
That'll be in the document for the public hearing.
No,
So, but I think you should do another work
So you want a
session
second
before,
work
we-
session?
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
One more work session.
yeah.
Okay.
Because if there were other issues in the first 2 parts, we might want to update on the whole thing.
plus the
before we
numbers
go
are gonna have to
public.
be updated after the other changes
So
are
we'll
made
do
too.
one more work session with new numbers.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Thanks.
okay.
And more
you.
discussion.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
it's going to be a busy day.
It is, the way it sounds.
So that brings us to public comment, Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you, sir. The board adopted a resolution in 1989 intending to maintain the order and decorum of the governmental process. A copy is found here to my right. By Resolution 51-20, persons are welcome to address the Board of County Commissioners on any matter germane to the business of county government. Persons addressing the board shall refrain from statements, remarks, and conduct that is uncivil, rude, vulgar, profane, or otherwise disruptive to the conduct of the board's business. All speakers are asked to identify themselves, and whether speaking as an individual, you'll be allocated 2 minutes, or as the appointed spokesperson of a group, where you'll be allocated 5. For those attending virtually, if you wish to speak, please use *9 if you called in, or use the raise your hand function if you logged in. The Ethics Commission has asked that we remind speakers of public comment that lobbyists include those who seek to influence public policy, and lobbyists must register in advance. And just as a reminder, the record period for the presentation we just heard has not opened, so any comments made with respect to what was discussed in the work session will not be included as part of the public record, nor has the public record for the Commissioner's budget opened. So is there anyone who wishes to speak?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Kara Buckmaster, and I am here on behalf of the Calvert Employee Representative Committee, the CERC. The following comments have been developed based upon feedback the CERC has received from employees that engaged in the review process for Chapter 86, Part 3. First, we would like to highlight the importance of considering an alternative structure for promotional pay. Currently, the code states that county employees who compete and are offered a higher graded position are eligible for a 6% pay increase or the lowest step in the new grade, whichever is higher. However, even with the potential for an additional step increase, county employees are still at a significant disadvantage when it comes to negotiating their salaries as compared to external candidates. In fact, the policy creates an environment in which an external candidate can negotiate a substantially higher salary than a county employee. Considering that county employees do not receive hiring preference, the inequity in this policy is unjustified. The CERC has also received feedback from multiple departments that this policy has negatively impacted employee morale and dissuaded employees from accepting promotions because the increase in workload was not adequately reflected in their salary. county employees should have the same opportunity to negotiate their salary as external candidates. Second, we would like to bring attention to the section of Part 3 regarding the payment of overtime. The proposed change to the overtime policy will prevent all non-exempt full-time staff from earning overtime until they have put in a 40-hour work week. However, the county employs several non-exempt full-time staff on a 35-hour work week. This is unfair to those employees as their conditions for employment were set at 35 hours, not 40. They deserve to be compensated accordingly for any time required outside of their normal 35-hour schedule. The CERC requests this be changed to say that non-exempt full-time employees will receive overtime pay for all hours worked outside of their regular weekly total. Thirdly, the proposed change to standby pay states that it shall be paid at the rate established in each approved annual budget for the county. This statement is overly vague and creates the potential for employees to be underpaid for their time. The CERC requests additional research be conducted to determine a minimum rate at which is on par with the industry standard. Fourth, we would like to bring attention to the new section for critical incident pay. This section needs to include non-exempt employees as well as exempt. In order for the county to be reimbursed for hours worked under federal and state declared emergencies, hours worked by all employees must be identified as work in relation to critical incident response. This category must be separate from any other. This is paramount for requesting post-disaster recovery funding from the federal government, and failure to account for these hours accurately puts the county at risk of losing a significant amount of funding following future disasters. Finally, the CERC would like to request a direct opportunity for feedback, such as a roundtable or town hall, be created between HR and employees for the Chapter 86 revisions. This approach would allow HR to explain the requested changes in a more comprehensive way that county employees can fully understand, and would enable the CERC to provide feedback and possible alternatives or solutions. This two-way communication would foster an environment which is more receptive to the upcoming changes by increasing awareness and understanding. It would also help alleviate apprehension regarding the unanticipated impact some of these changes may have on employees. Currently, there is an overall concern that by the time Chapter 86 reaches public comment, it will be too late and employee concerns will not be substantively addressed. The CERC would like to thank the Board of County Commissioners for their continued support of county employees, as well as the County Administrator's Office and HR for their current efforts to maintain transparency. We look forward to future opportunities to provide feedback on employee-related issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Joe Cormier, and I'll be speaking on behalf of CCAC this morning. I'm just here this morning to say thank you. Thank you to the Commissioners, Ms. Turner, Ms. Tisdale, Mr. Bullock, everybody who helped support CCAC for the award ceremony. This morning I was able to go to Huntingtown High School and present certificates to the orchestra team, the national anthem singers from the Huntingtown High School Choir, the NJROTC members and Commander Hartwell from Huntingtown High School, the building service staff and the administration. That night we were able to recognize somewhere north of 200 staff members and have over 400 community members and family members there, and it was just a really great night, so we really appreciate your support, and having the media team record that really elevated the whole event and gave us the opportunity to share it with the community in a much larger audience, so we really appreciate that. Yesterday, we had the inclusive track and field event through the Department of Special Education, and seeing all the infants, toddlers up to fifth graders participating in track and field events was fantastic, and we want to give our shout out and appreciation to Sheriff Cox and all his command staff and the deputies who came, even Deputy Dougal, who was the fluffiest good boy. So we really appreciate all the sheriff's support for that. And we got our secondary event's going to be at Calvert High School tomorrow, starting at 10 o'clock. So we hope that if you're available, you're able to join us. Special shout out to Miss Katie Britton, who is always available for contact and shout outs and helps us every step of the way. So we really appreciate that. But CCAC is just so thankful that we have such a supportive community here, and we look forward to continuing our community events and continuing our advocacy for our students. And we appreciate all the stuff that you guys are doing on this side of the board. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank
you.
Anyone else? Okay, and the one caller has not raised their hand, so that appears to be it.
Thank you. So that brings us to Commissioner reports. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Mr. President. Keep it brief today. Condolences for the Yost family. Please keep them in your prayers. Hope to see you right at the golf course this afternoon. And we do have a couple fundraisers coming up this weekend, one Friday and one Saturday at Horseman's Farm, and the other one at the golf course on Friday. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Arlen.
As Joe Comer said, we were at the CCAC Awards on the 17th, had the mock crash Calvert High on the 18th. I'll tell you, it was a very attentive group. They paid attention. Debbie Jennings and her whole staff from Chesapeake Traffic Safety Region Council, something along those lines, was there, and like I said, it was a good event. I was able to narrate it, and those are great things. Hopefully they get somebody's attention and could potentially save a life. Traffic Safety Council meeting was that afternoon. I want to thank Jason Levitt for his guidance to the Traffic Safety Council over the last couple of years. Academy graduation for new Sheriff's Office personnel was the 26th. Celtic Festival was the 27th. Very well attended. Bagpipe bands were great. Touch a Truck at Huntingtown High School was that afternoon. Everything from police cars, fire trucks, tow trucks doing demonstrations of crashed vehicles, the tractors and cranes. A lot of kids went through there, got to sit in those vehicles and touch them. This Saturday at Horseman Farm, as Commissioner Cox said, is a fun walk and run to support brain cancer research. Registration's at 7 o'clock, starts at 8. It's $30 per person. Richard Hall, county resident, owner of Bob Hall, Budweiser distributor, in Upper Marlboro, passed away at his home in Calvert. Great guy, very community oriented. I worked with Richard several times over the years. Good guy. He was very generous business owner, cared about the community, did his part to make a difference in our world. A particular interest to him was DUI prevention. He did a lot of your designated driver programs, Tiki Bar opening, all the signs. He was all responsible for all that. He'll be missed by many. Thanks.
Commissioner Hart.
Echo Commissioner Ireland. Absolutely, he was all over those events. He really was. I'll be real quick. Want to once again congratulate everyone from the Sheriff's Office Academy. I was there with Turner and Mark and Commissioner Ireland, and I heard something I did not know what was part of the training was cadets were actually talked to by the pastor of how to explain to someone that they may have lost a loved one. That's pretty deep when that's part of your work training. That's a tough one. Went to Patuxent High School's play of Wizard of Oz. Outstanding, incredible. My ADD to have me pay attention for 3 hours. Only thing that was bothering me was my back. But they were incredible, from the music, the stage sets, the teachers and staff that helped on out there. Outstanding. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Russell.
I heard that it was fabulous.
It was incredible.
Commissioner Ireland was talking about it and said his wife and friend really praised it. Congratulations to the CCAC Award recipients. We'll have our ribbon cutting this afternoon, and last Wednesday, we had an honor flight come into Dunkirk Park. 25 veterans ages 71 to 101 were there. Congratulations to Planning and Zoning. They did an excellent job. The public did not hear this. It was not in attendance, but an American flag that was part of President Ronald Reagan's funeral procession was flown. It was just wonderful, and everybody was so appreciative, so nice, and looking forward to next year's honor flight. That's it.
Thank you. So, I attended some of those events, but Thursday night I did go to the hospital. They had an event there to celebrate their new Da Vinci robotic surgery machine, or whatever you want to call that thing. It's pretty amazing. As I say, that hospital has changed so much in my lifetime here in Calvert County that it's pretty amazing the things they're doing. And I spoke that night at, how important, most people don't pay any attention, but that hospital is still independent. And that was a great example of a community coming together to raise $5 million for them to get that machine. And, that just doesn't happen when hospitals are gobbled up by big mergers. They're just not a part of their community. But people reached into their own personal pockets to give money to the hospital to buy that machine to serve all. So it's just a great example on why it's so important that that hospital remain independent. And that's all I have, because we're on a pretty tight schedule today. So, we're gonna be late for the ribbon cutting, which is supposed to start at 12 o'clock, but that's not gonna happen. And don't forget to vote. Early voting starts this week. Please vote. Somebody have a motion? 'Cause I've
Just
lost
grabbed
my
her sheet,
place.
yes.
Commissioner Hart, Commissioner
Oh, okay.
someone?
Here we go.
I had you back just in case.
Thank you so much. I move to recess to executive session pursuant to general provisions, Article 3-305B8, to consult with staff and consultants about pending or potential litigation, ribbon cutting, Department of Parks and Recreation, Chesapeake Hills Golf Course ribbon cutting ceremony.
Second?
I have motion and second that we move into executive session. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Everyone, have a great day.